Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, cover all the home teams. We'll talk about the New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, UNO Privateers. We'll talk about them as well. LSU Tigers. Maybe we'll get to the Tulane Green Wave if we have time. And we got a great panel for you tonight. Les East is a freelance journalist. He works with SportsNOLA.com, also NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And joining us shortly will be Corey Johnson of Fox Sports 1280. Welcome to the show, Les, as always. Always great to have you back on the program. And if you would, tell the folks about everything you're involved in.
Thanks, Eric. It's good to be back. As you mentioned, I'm writing for SportsNOLA.com and NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, and been able to cover a lot of high schools, colleges, and pros since I've been back. So that's good, a lot of variety. And recently picked up a new gig, not really relevant to our show tonight, but I'm writing for NationalLampoon.com.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Yeah, so that's a pretty cool assignment. And occasionally I work a little sports into that as well.
Right, and more of a political satire right there.
Political satire is the primary mission, but current events fall into that category. So occasionally there's some sports elements I can touch on.
And how can folks follow you on social media?
They can follow me on Facebook, and they can also follow me on Twitter at Les_East. And as you know, I tweet rather frequently.
Yes, you do. You're a rather frequent tweeter, and also, of course, being friends on Facebook, I get a chance to be able to see that as well. Very entertaining, folks. I think you should follow him and friend him on Facebook. We'll start off talking about the UNO Privateers. Great season for them, 12-4 in the conference right now, 17-10 overall. There was at least a thought that maybe they might get 20 wins within the regular season, which would have been another milestone for this program, which was so down for so long. I mean, you got to go back to maybe the Tim Floyd days where you've seen that much success. You hope you can see that sustained success. But again, losing to Northwestern, that hurt the Privateers. But again, they still have a chance at a regular season championship. Your thoughts on how Coach Les has really turned this program around?
Yeah, he's really done a great job getting them back on the map. That was a tough loss the other night in Natchitoches, but they can still control their own fate as far as winning a share and quite possibly an outright regular season championship, which would be a great accomplishment. Of course, we know with the Southland that it really comes down to the conference tournament. That's not going to be a multi-bid league. So they're going to have to win the tournament to get to the NCAA tournament, but they'll probably be the favorites to win that, and they've put themselves in a great position. Given the state of Louisiana college basketball right now, that's a great story, and people should be excited about what's going on at UNO.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt, which looks like maybe only one entry if they can win the tournament. Maybe some of the other schools, if they win their conference tournament, maybe have a chance at that point, but it's really been down, and they have a senior-laden team that has really come together this season. They hustle, play good defense. They're unselfish. They're very, as I mentioned, very, very disciplined. I mean, everything you want in a senior-laden ball club. and some guys that went through some tough times at UNO as well.
Yeah, and I think that's probably contributed to the toughness of this team. And, that's really important this time of year. When you start filling out your March Madness bracket, at least when I do, some of the things I look for are senior leadership,
yes.
which is huge, good guard play, toughness, a track record of having won tight games and one on the road. And I think you see a lot of those qualities in this team. So I would expect that they would be in position to represent themselves well in the conference tournament and hopefully position themselves to get into the NCAA tournament.
And I can't help talking about UNO without saying that I like the take-em-all-comer attitude, because if you look at Coach Sless, the way he set up the schedule, he's going to a lot of major schools, mid-majors, major conferences. He's playing on their floor. And of course, that toughens up your team, especially for when you get to tournament time. You're not walking into a venue that you've never been. You've never been in that type of a big venue before, and you're going to be overwhelmed by it. They've been in these big venues before, so if they can get through the conference tournament and win, it won't be an unfamiliar spot going into one of these bigger schools' arenas and having to play there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's one of the things that a lot of programs have trouble deciding which way they want to go. Do they want to try and pad the record, or do they want to have an impressive RPI and prepare the team? I think UNO has done the sensible thing. They've played a tough schedule, which is valuable for all the reasons you just mentioned. They're probably going to play in a bigger arena than they're normally playing in if they do get to the NCAA tournament, and they're going to be an underdog playing probably a bigger program. And all of those games that they played earlier in the year, non-conference, are going to help them if they find themselves in that situation. So that's definitely the smart approach to take.
Obviously, the NCAAs is what they're looking for. That's their goal. Normally, the NIT is looking for box office, but they're always looking for a good team to travel. So there's a good possibility with the type of season they put up, going to these venues, that even if they don't make the NCAA tournament, that they may have a chance to get an NIT bid as well.
Yeah, and I think they also have the rule now, if you win your regular season title and don't get in the NCAA tournament, you automatically get an NIT bid. So there's a good chance that they're going to lock up a postseason bid of some sort before the conference tournament even begins. And, NCAA tournament obviously is what they want to do, but an NIT bid would still be significant for the program at this particular time.
Especially less when you see where the program was just a few short years ago. And they were talking about dismantling the program, Division II. I mean, again, it's been a tough ride in terms of rebuilding that program, but whether it's Blake Dean and Coach Mace on the baseball side or what Coach Sless has done on the basketball side, UNO is relevant again. I mean, look, I've often said on this program, said on my radio show, give me a reason to talk about you. And UNO has given us a reason to talk about them now. We're leading off the show with them tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And, people in college basketball circles know UNO. They had some problems in recent years for a variety of reasons, but people know what Tim Floyd did, and they know what Benny Dees did,
yes.
And they know the old timers probably know what Ron Green did. I mean, they've had a tremendous track record of hiring coaches over the years. They have a good basketball pedigree, and they're getting back to where they used to be. So it's a great story out on the lakefront, and it seems like they're generating some enthusiasm around the program. You mentioned the baseball program with Blake Dean as well. And that can only help the university, which itself has gone through some tough times, to get the athletic programs back to the level that they've been in the past.
Yep, no doubt. 80, 90 miles upriver in Baton Rouge, the Tigers are 10-19 overall. 2-15. I remember reading about the Tigers early in the season after they were playing in some of these preseason tournaments, and some of the well-known basketball writers in the country were talking about the Tiger team. They didn't feel they were that talented. Well, when you talk about senior leadership for UNO, you talk about all the players that Johnny Jones has lost to the draft this past year. And, of course, it really shows when you start talking about LSU right now. They break a 15-game losing streak versus Tennessee on senior night, but yet it doesn't look good for Johnny Jones' future at LSU. And, it's interesting. You don't hear recruits casting their lot with LSU, okay, because of the uncertainty. And you're really not hearing a lot about who may come in and possibly take Johnny Jones's place if he is relieved of his duties at the end of the season. And I find that, again, that being very, very quiet, it's kind of unusual when you talk about a program like LSU.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what to read into that. Maybe they're being tight-lipped about it, or maybe there's not a lot of interest in the job. Maybe there's a certain amount of respect for the fact that a decision has not been made. But I think we all know that they're going to have to make a change there. And, I hate to see it happen because, like a lot of people, I thought Johnny Jones was the obvious hire when they did it 5 years ago. Because of his ties to the program, because of the job he did, not only as Dale Brown's assistant, but as a head coach at North Texas. I think he went to the NCAA tournament twice with North Texas, and it was his dream job. He prepared his whole life for that opportunity, and he got off to a pretty good start. Those first 3 years, he had the program headed in the right direction, and he signed Ben Simmons and some other guys. It looked like they were ready to take the next step. And then last year, they disappointed. And sometimes you wonder, there are some coaches who can recruit good players, but they can't coach great players. They're more comfortable coaching players that aren't as talented. But in the last 2 years, you've had a talented team come up short, and then a less talented team set a school record for futility with 15 straight losses. So I think the combination of those two things are going to force them to make a change.
And an interesting situation when you look at the football program and the basketball program mirroring each other in some cases. Two Louisiana guys, two guys loved LSU, two guys that went to LSU. Again, Jones played for LSU. Coach O never had a chance to play at LSU. Two guys that were brought in because of their recruiting prowess. Two guys now that got the head coaching job. You hope that Coach O will have some sustainability and some success more than what Johnny Jones has had, which, as you mentioned, first 3 years and then kind of on the downslide since then. But it's interesting, same type of situation there. When you look at both of those guys, you're hoping that obviously Coach O will have much more success. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages. Corey Johnson will join the panel.
Reggie, just recently, my wife and I took in her sister's children. Now, we already had 4, so I went from becoming a family man to a man with a bigger family. Now, you can't eat love, so I don't know how I'm gonna feed them tonight. How was that, Rich?
I think I look more like Denzel.
That's cold, man.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state. Blue state. Vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities, our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our other panelist has made it live from the radio show. Corey Johnson joins us from Fox Sports 1280. Corey, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you, as always. Tell the folks a little bit about what's going on with Corey Johnson, of course, your TV show, your radio show, how folks can get in, what's going on at ABC 26. Give us the whole 9 yards.
Well, first off, I didn't know you were having Les East here. We're downgrading the show with me coming in here. I remember when I first started, like in the early 90s, Les had already been in it. So I guess, Les, I'm going to guess you started in this business like late 80s, huh? Mid 80s?
Maybe even earlier than that.
Uh-oh, you're old man, Les.
Yeah,
Les has been around for a long, long time. I remember at The Advocate when I was at LSU and all that back in the time. Yeah, Eric doing the radio show on AM 1280 every afternoon. It's also simulcast on Cox Channel 4 and doing some editorials a couple of times a week on Channel 26. So yeah, it's fun.
And folks, again, if you haven't caught any of Corey's editorials, you have to catch those on ABC 26. You also got a website now as well.
Yeah, CoreyJohnson.com. You can catch some of, archival stuff and podcasts from the radio show and other goodies. You can listen live and all that fun stuff.
Well, let's jump into Saints, and then we'll jump into Pelicans. We've talked a little about UNO and LSU already on the program tonight. There are rumors that Brandon Cooks may be traded to either the Tennessee Titans or the Philadelphia Eagles. Cooks had 78 catches for 1,173 yards last season, 8 touchdowns. It was his second straight 1,000-yard season. He's under contract for $1.5.6 million this season. Any team that trades for him, or if the Saints decide to keep him, will probably pick up that fifth-year option that is part of being a number one draft pick now, in the first-round pick in the NFL. That's the option is in 2018. The reported trade scenario is as follows: the Titans may want to trade their first-round pick, which is 18 overall, to the Saints for Brandon Cooks.
Do it.
There was also talk that the Saints may swap picks. The fifth pick in the draft also belongs to the Tennessee Titans, and the Saints may flip-flop 11 and 5.
Wow.
If that's a possibility. There's no word on what Philadelphia is offering at this point. Now, earlier today, the company line was that the Saints don't have an interest in trading Brandon Cooks, but other teams have been inquiring about his availability. This afternoon, John DeShazer had an interview with Sean Payton at the Combine, in which Payton talked about the fact that this is the time of year where teams talk about the possibility of trading players. They talk about the possibility of trading picks. Unlike what happened a few months ago, where he called any trading of Brandon Cooks garbage, he did not deny this afternoon, did not deny that there were conversations. There's also was a report on social media with Bleacher Report. Matt Miller of Bleacher Report said that Cooks is the genesis of this. He wants out of the Saints offense. He's pushing for the trade. He wants to be a number one receiver. He wants to be featured, and doesn't feel he can be featured in the Saints offense, where they're asking him to go long and be kind of that deep threat, and allowing players to be able to work underneath. Les, I'll take you first. Your thoughts on Brandon Cooks, your thoughts on the possibility of him being moved. Is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal for the Saints?
Well, backing up what Corey reacted to moments ago, if they can get the 18th pick in the first round, I think that's probably a pretty good deal for Brandon Cooks. You listen to anybody this time of year. Somebody calls up and says, I want to talk about Drew Brees. You listen to them. Doesn't mean you have to do anything, right, but you definitely listen. There are a lot of reasons for considering trading Brandon Cooks. They suddenly have developed some young receivers who are pretty good, especially Michael Thomas. He looks much more like a number one receiver than Brandon Cooks does. So I think they could withstand that loss. They have to get help on the defensive side of the ball. If that number one pick or something else they get in the trade could help with that, you got to do it. I think he's probably fallen out of favor with the head coach, if not the quarterback, based on his attitude last year when he wasn't getting the ball as much as he thought he should have. You know, he's got a pretty good gig. He said, he doesn't want to clear out the room for everybody underneath. You know, he scored a lot of long touchdowns with this team. That's why he's making some of the money he's made and why he's getting some attention from other teams. So I think absolutely you look at it, and if you can get the right deal, I think he's somebody that can replace fairly easily.
Yeah. Corey, what's your thoughts?
Brandon Cooks should call Jimmy Graham. I mean, their wide receivers want to play in Brees, the Saints offense with Drew Brees. So never heard someone wanting to leave it. But, he did, like Les said, he had those complaints not getting the ball enough last year, and that kind of probably rankled the feathers of Peyton, team game, all that stuff. And going back to Jimmy Graham, if he can be traded, anyone can be traded. So I like how you said the Saints line, the company line, which is basically the Saints BS on this. It takes two to tango.
Right.
I mean, when teams call and, hey, is Brees available, which he's not, they're not, this isn't a story we're talking about. So obviously the Saints are having a back and forth with at least these two teams. They probably were the ones that started the talk. I mean, teams don't approach teams usually and be like, hey, the guy you like that you're happy with, you want to trade him? It happens sometimes because teams target players, but I think it works the other way. Teams get disgruntled with a player and then they go shop him around a little bit. But one good thing I noticed, Eric, with the Saints offense all these years, I'm sure Les will agree with this, running back, wide receiver, you'd love to have pro bowlers and all pro types, but it seems Peyton's offense with Drew Brees at the controls, you could almost put anyone out there. And this draft, you can have a lot of depth at running back. You'll have guys second, third day getting drafted that play in the NFL. Same with wide receivers. So I think anyone is, can be traded on this offense outside of Brees.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Look, he's going into his fifth-year option after this season, so you'd have to pick that option up. He's obviously gone on social media and complained, okay, which is kind of unprecedented when you think about the Saints offense. And it was after a game where the Saints beat the Rams 49-21, and they were setting records in terms of offensive proficiency. Then you look at he's a stretch player. I mean, that's what he's not a guy that wants to catch the ball over the middle. He doesn't take hits well. I mean, he's just and again, he doesn't relish that role because of his speed. But at the end of the day, he is who he is. Then you look at Meacham and you look at Henderson and you look at those guys that made a career out of being the stretch guy in that offense. And those guys don't cost a lot. He's a number one pick. He's going to demand a lot of money if he stays here in New Orleans, and he's not going to be the number one guy. The number one guy is going to be Michael Thomas, and maybe he sees that looking over his shoulder as well. So he's one of the few assets they have on this team. And when you're hurting on the defensive side of the ball, as Peyton said in the interview today with John DeShazer, you have to look at all options to be able to fill some of those holes.
You can't get anything for nothing in the
NFL.
Agreed. So you can't just trade the 35th guy on the roster and expect something. So guys like him or Ingram or someone like that, they're viable. And if you're going to get a first-round pick for this guy, I think I'd take the 25th overall pick, much less the 18th, or swap an 11 to 5. I would do that gimmick too.
Right.
I think you can get wide receivers and running backs down the road, and the Saints need defensive help, like 4 or 5 defensive players.
Well, they pulled Corey Fuller off the Detroit practice squad last year, former Virginia Tech player, who has got the same measurables, same speed. He is Brandon Cooks, but he's a guy that has been kind of a journeyman in the NFL, so probably be more than happy to be the stretch guy on the outside.
And Drew Brees throwing it?
Well, yeah, and also after the year he had as a rookie last year, Michael Thomas is going to command more attention from defenses, and that's going to create an opportunity for a stretch guy like that, and he may be able to find an opportunity here that he couldn't find elsewhere, just like a lot of other guys have because of Drew Brees and the offense that they run. But, the key to the whole thing, and I think we've all touched on this to some degree, is they have to get better on defense. You're not going to get anybody who's going to be helpful to you unless you trade something worthwhile. He's one of the few assets they can move that will bring something in return, and at the same time, he's relatively easy to replace for someone who can command something on the market. Right. For all those reasons, it makes perfect sense for them to shop him around.
And he's going into his prime. I mean, again, you're not trying to sell off an aging player. This is a guy that again will be going into his second contract. And look, ultimately, when you look at it, I think it's just good business sense to be able to look at the type of player you normally would play in that position and realize that's not a guy that's going to get a lot of money from you. It's not and you want a guy that's not going to be complaining about not getting the football. And this would be a really good move, especially they could parlay that into an 18th pick.
What are you going to? I'd love that. And if some team is dopey enough to give you the 18th overall pick, it's a no-brainer. But I'm kind of thinking, like, in reality, it's going to be like a third-round pick or something.
First thing I thought was that as well.
Something like that.
But that's what's been reported.
Yeah,
Cooks was the 20th pick in the draft. Remember, the Saints traded up to get him. So interesting on that front. If you could get that 18th pick, take it and run. If you can get a player, especially along the offensive line, a guard or a tackle, a veteran player that can come in and challenge on that right side, that to me is also something worth going after as well.
Well, yeah, that would fulfill another need. It wouldn't help with the defense, but they do have other holes, and the offensive line is one of them. So, whatever he can do, skilled players are not that hard to come by if you're looking for somebody that Sean Payton and Drew Brees can make effective. Okay, they've done it for a long time. So he's fairly easy to replace, not taking away from the production he's had, but nonetheless, they can find somebody else who can play a similar role.
Yeah, I think if he's not even here, you're bumming out about that.
No. He's replaceable.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
He's an asset, but he's replaceable.
Yep.
Especially at that position at wide receiver, because they've been interchangeable throughout the Peyton era. There's no doubt about that. Jarvis Byrd is expected to be cut on March the 9th. It's been announced. He signed a 6-year, $54 million contract, $26 million guaranteed. There's $8 million in dead money that's going to be as part of this, depending on how the Saints play this. $3.2 million if they take the full dead money this year in terms of cap savings. If they don't, and they spread this out over a 2-year period, the Saints can get an additional $7.8 million against the cap this year, which again is really needed when you start looking at the Saints. Somewhere around $30 million available to be able to spend in this offseason. That would bump that up to almost $38 million. To me, when you look at this, he came to the Saints as damaged goods. The back was injured. Then came the knee when he blew the knee out. He always had a reputation in Buffalo as a guy that didn't play unless he was 100%. I mean, that was his MO there. And of course, they got 33 games out of him in 3 seasons. And it wasn't until the end of last season that we started to see the glimpses of what Jarvis Byrd was in Buffalo. But he's a descending player now, and again, not worth the money. And you got a guy like Von Bell waiting in the wings. Guys, good deal, bad deal for the Saints making this move? Should they have asked him for a pay cut? Les, your thoughts?
I think that it's probably the smart move to cut ties with him. Now we'll see which way they go with the cap money. I tend to think that they're going to try and maximize the amount of money they can spend this year, because it looks to me like Sean Payton's feeling a sense of urgency that maybe wasn't there the last 2 or 3 years. You look at the changes he made in the coaching staff, 3 straight 7 and 9 seasons. I think he wants to win, and he wants to win now. And if they can get an extra few $1 million to spend in free agency, I think that's the way he's going to want to go, because he wants to get better on defense as much as he can and make another run. And you know, the quarterback's not getting any younger. He's still outstanding. But that window's closing, and I think there's a definite sense of urgency on Payton's part this offseason.
What can you add, Corey?
Not too much. I mean, that's pretty accurate. I think Byrd, I mean, the last half of last year was the only thing he showed?
Right.
They may have gone to him and said, will you take a reduction? Who knows? And maybe he said no or something. He'll probably go somewhere else, and it's like the Eric Gordon of the Saints.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing.
That is a great comparison.
You know,
just
a high expectation, but you never got anything out of it, and maybe someone else does.
Right. There was, there's been rumors on the net that, maybe he'll go back to Buffalo. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, But at this point, I think with Von Bell waiting in the wings.
Yeah, you got Bell, and you're freeing up $3.5 million more to go with the 30, or that gets you around 30 with that 3.5. $3.5 million, Eric, you can go get a good player, or 2 or 3, your 50 first, 52nd guy on the roster. So, and what are you getting production-wise out of this guy? Not what you're paying him.
And if you split it over 2 years, you get almost $8 million.
No, that's amazing.
Which again gives you even more money to spend in free agency, especially if you spend it wisely.
I wish they could do something with that dead money. It's a lot of dead money.
Well, and it keeps on piling up. Because remember, Breeze's contract that he signs automatically gives you dead money over the next 2 years. No matter whether he stays with the Saints or not, there's dead money that's going to be against that. But it is what it is at this point. One of the big decisions the Saints have to make in the offseason is the re-signing of Nick Fairley. Corey, what do you think about Nick Fairley? Can the Saints afford to get into a bidding war with Nick Fairley, considering his history, even though he played very, very well for the Saints last year?
No, what stinks about Fairley is you want to just get him back, and then you go get free agents. But he is going to be one of the free agents that you're going to have to go try to get. So when you get him and you spend a big chunk of this $30 million on him, you're kind of just in neutral. It's like an old car, you replace the transmission. Doesn't get any better, it just runs like it used to, And that's kind of what you're getting with Fairley. So that stinks. Because, Eric, I don't blame Fairley. Oh gosh, the Saints gave me this chance to renew my career. I took advantage of it. I owe them something and I'm going to stick. That would be nice if he said that and did that. I think that would show a lot of great character. But he doesn't owe the Saints anything. And I'm sure his agent's like, we've got to go exploit the market and just see, what could possibly be out there. But he played pretty darn good, like back to maybe like glimpses of what you saw maybe those first 2 years in Detroit. So,
What was expected of him is
exactly
how
what you thought coming out of Auburn, what he was going to be. But no, they need him because then you're going backwards again. He kind of filled a void that had been missing for a lot, and you lose him.
Yep, no doubt.
Good.
And you hope that the Mobile connection really keeps him here, much like the DeMarcus Cousins situation that we'll talk about a little bit later. Your thoughts, Les?
Well, I pretty much agree with what Corey said. The problem is, and that's why I think that the chances of getting him back probably aren't very good. Ideally, you'd like to have him back without having to overpay and have him play at the level he played at last year.
Yep.
I don't think all of those things are going to happen. He's definitely going to want to test the market. I think there's a reason why he was sort of a resurgent player last year, because he was going to hit the free agent market.
Yep.
So once he hits the market based on that year, there's going to be a bidding war. You'll probably have to overpay to keep him. And then is he going to be as motivated next year as he was this year? You look at his career, and I think it's reasonable to wonder if he'll be as motivated. So
I think that's accurate.
I think it's unlikely they'll be able to fit all of that together, and I don't think they can afford to overpay for him at this point.
Both you guys covered Morton Anderson in his time here in New Orleans. Corey, you had a great interview with Morton Anderson on your radio show recently. Your thoughts on Morton going into the Hall of Fame?
I think it's great and long overdue. I mean, he's the NFL's all-time leading scorer. Some funny stuff from that interview, which was kind of obviously when you're this type of, you're the leading scorer in the NFL, you played 25 years, you're a sicko competitor. But Les, I didn't know he was so cutthroat. He's talking about when Benny Ricardo and Bum, in that era, Benny Ricardo's kicking 35-yard field goals. Morton's kicking 60-yarders from behind him. So Ricardo's seeing this boom sound, hearing it, and then seeing the ball soar over his head. He's like, and the way Morton said it, like, yeah, you know. And then he tells another story about in Atlanta, had been out of football like 20 months, but kicking at a high school and staying in shape. He saw then Atlanta coach J.L. Mora and said, you know, your kicker's screwing up, call me if you need me. And he brings him in for a tryout, and Morton thought it was just going to be him. He shows up and there's like 4, I forget what he called them, flat stomachs or something, like 22-year-old kids. And the goalpost has a net behind it with a stripe. And Morton said he kicked 15, 14 of them hit the stripe, and the fifth, one of them nicked the side of it. And when he kicked the 15th, he looked at the administrators right in front of the 4 kids and just said, "Any questions?" And they said, "Yeah, blue or black ink." And that's how they signed the contracts. And the 4 kids just walked off at that moment. But no, just long overdue. And just was the Falcons' all-time leading scorer, is the Saints, is the NFL's, 25 seasons. I think Blanda only played more seasons, but Morton has the most games, like 382 or something. It's
amazing.
Ridiculous. So yeah, I guess it's Stenerud, Guy, and now him.
Yes,
that'll
Morton,
be the 3 specialists.
You covered him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that he got in this year, but pleasantly so. I thought he definitely deserved it. As you mentioned, leading scorer in the history of the sport. It's kind of hard to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. So I thought he definitely deserved it. I didn't think he would necessarily get in this year. There were a lot of good people on that ballot. Some good people didn't get in. But I was glad to see it. It shows, you know, the people on the Hall of Fame committee, and I know some of these people, they work at it really hard. They take that job very seriously. Yes. And they did their work here. They talked about it because it's very easy to dismiss a place kicker. It's been done over the years. And they obviously paid attention to the numbers and put his career in context and had an intelligent discussion that yielded the right result. He belongs there, and I'm happy for him.
And didn't he mention in the interview, Corey, that he really kind of felt this needed to be the year for him? Because if it wasn't, that maybe, again, he may be passed over for good?
Yeah, that was definitely what he was saying. So that's huge. He had been passed over a few times.
Right.
And then he started talking about like the old-time guys that have been overlooked and all that. So, yeah, he thought the momentum was right this year for him to get in, and he did. So, yeah, congratulations. He is you know what's incredible about him? He's like 6'2", 6'3", like 2 1/4. Yeah. He was an athlete.
Yes.
He wasn't just kickers are like my size in the NFL. And this guy was, you know, he could make a tackle. He was athletic.
Greatest clutch kicker in the history of the NFL.
Absolutely. And one thing, you know, we should mention, this occurred to me when he got in, you know, that's, you know, Morton Anderson and Ricky Jackson. Those are 2 NFL Hall of Famers drafted by Bum Phillips and Joe Woolley.
Yeah.
Those are 2 guys who maybe over the years we've forgotten about a little bit. Joe Woolley's information not only helped Bum with the 81 draft, which was phenomenal. They used his information for the 86 draft. Jim Finks did a great job, but that was Joe Woolley's information.
But that is a great point.
So those 2 guys, I mean, Bum Phillips and Joe Woolley, they knew personality.
It was the first time I think the Saints had a little respect around the league. The Saints were almost like a football team back then for the first time. For the first time.
Right. You throw in the USFL and of course, the knowledge of Jim Moore and knowing about the USFL, and that turned into, obviously, the Saints' first playoff team.
I don't want to throw a curveball into this, Eric, but I'd love to get y'all's take on this reversing roles.
Sure.
Eric, I'm taking over your program, damn it. Thanks. The Saints have a dilemma. You know, they don't officially retire any numbers. Archie Manning's number is unofficially retired, so no one wears 8. Drew Brees is going to retire 2-3 years from now. Mm-hmm. You're not going to let the McNeese kid coming in at quarterback wear 9.
Right.
How do you, and you can't let anyone wear 9, right? How do you not let anyone wear 9 when Morton Anderson, Willie Roaf, and Ricky Jackson, NFL Hall of Famers numbers are being worn?
Yeah.
So that's going to be embarrassing. The Saints need to, if I were them, I'd retire in order of Hall of Fame, Ricky Jackson first, Willie Roaf second, Morton Anderson third, over the next 3 seasons.
Yes.
Probably would coincide with Breeze. You unofficially retire his number. I think the Bears have 14, 15 numbers retired. This would be 5 unofficially retired. I think it'll be embarrassing if those guys aren't unofficially retired and Breeze's number is. Les.
You know, Les, I've talked about it on this show and the radio show, and it has to be done. The Ring of Honor is not enough. And I agree with you, Corey. You could do it in the order in which they went into the Hall of Fame. And from this point forward, if you make it to the Hall of Fame, your jersey is retired.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable, and I agree with everything you said. And to further hijack your show, I'll throw in one other thing. It's past time that they recognize Sam Mills.
Yes.
My God.
Whose number was going to be dropped from the rafters
Before Katrina.
That's
right. Yeah, that's not right.
That game wound up being played in the Meadowlands in New York, and they never made it up.
Yes.
And he's got a statue outside of the stadium in
Exactly.
Carolina for what he did with the Panthers. He did more with the Saints. Jim Mora still says best football player ever coached.
Right.
Sam Mills needs to get his due.
Plus that wall of fame, like the
banners.
Those are gone.
Right.
It was great because you had Pete Maravich,
Right.
you had Eddie Robinson,
Yes.
you had Jim Finks.
Right. Dave Dixon.
And then, you had Dixon, and I think you had Ricky Jackson, and
right,
Archie
and
Manning,
Archie
which
Manning.
they're now on the Ring of Fame,
Right.
but you need to bring that back too, because those are people that were in the dome. That's where the Saints get a little petty and strange.
Yeah,
and
no, I agree, and that's a real oversight by the franchise.
Hey, here's the final gimmick: the Wall of Fame with when it's a retired number, you put a halo over the number.
There you
gold
go.
halo, you know.
There you go.
I know you're watching, so you just heard Corey Johnson say it.
You want to do a little mock-up for him?
There you go. No, I think
I'm not a good artist. I can do stick people, Les. That's about it.
You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Great panel for you tonight. Corey Johnson of Fox Sports 1280, freelance journalist Les East of New Orleans Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, and SportsNOLA.com, and also National Lampoon, right? National Lampoon.
Nice.
Check it out.
I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back. We'll talk some Pels on the way back.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or amcofencecompany.com.
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Corey Johnson and Les East are our guests tonight. Guys, let's switch to the Pelicans. And I want to talk, I'm going to get into DeMarcus Cousins in a minute, but there's been a lot of banter back and forth that somehow Dell Demps has saved his job with this DeMarcus Cousins trade. You know, I look at it a little bit different. You got Dell Demps' overall body of work here in New Orleans has led to one playoff appearance. He traded away lottery picks. His acquisitions have either been backups, injury bust, or albatross contracts. You look at that situation, and you look at the Boogie Cousins trade, and you say to yourself, it's really 107 games is what you've got with Cousins guaranteed. No guarantee he's going to sign here long term. No guarantee that again, he's going to fit in and he's going to become this solid citizen that's going to be a cornerstone with Anthony Davis. And then you flip to Alvin Gentry, who now is in a situation where he came here expecting a free-flowing offense with Anthony Davis. And now you're going to be telling him that basically you're going to have to play a different type of offense. It's going to go more inside out to be able to deal with the twin towers of the two big men. I don't think that the move that was made at the 11th hour, when you talk about a fire sale from Sacramento that was trying to get rid of a guy that they weren't going to give a max contract, merits Dell Demps an opportunity to continue as the general manager. And I think you also, when you bring in a new general manager, if you would, you have to take a hard look at Alvin Gentry and his offense, what he does, and you know, maybe someone that might be able to do a better job in maybe taking these two guys and building an offense around them and taking them to the next level. Remember, Monty Williams was fired after going to the playoffs when this team was supposedly on the rise, okay? This team has been on a downslope since Monty Williams has been fired. I'll take you first, Les, because I know you've written about this on Sports NOLA. Your thoughts on Demps? Did he save his job? Should he be retained because he made this deal and he happened to get lucky because some ping pong balls fell his way and Anthony Davis fell in his lap? When you look at the body of work, to me, he has not done enough to merit him getting an extension or staying on with this team after the season.
I agree with that. The one thing I said about Demps is after the trade, I thought it gave them the opportunity to delay a decision on Demps if they chose to. In other words, they can say, he made the trade, he got the guy here. If he can sign him to a long-term deal, and to a lesser extent if he can re-sign Drew Holiday, we have a nucleus going forward. They could try and sell that. I agree with you. I don't think it's enough to save his job. You know, I said this 2 years ago, and I'll say it again. When Monty Williams, when that team beat San Antonio in the last game of the regular season to get that last playoff spot, I would have extended Monty Williams' contract that night or the next day. So that shows me that this team believes in you. They rallied behind you. They did everything they needed to do to beat the Spurs to get into the playoffs. Then if you decide you're going to fire him, which they did, I wouldn't have done it, but I understand why they did it. You don't pull the trigger unless you've already done your research and you say, we can hire X or Y who's going to be better than Monty Williams. You looked at Alvin Gentry's resume at the time. It didn't come close to saying this is a guy we need to get rid of Monty Williams for to bring him in. So, you know, I think, and I've written this multiple times, I think they need to clean house. And if they can keep DeMarcus Cousins, great. If they can keep Drew Holiday, great. It'll give them a better chance moving forward, but there need to be other people pulling the trigger.
It's like LSU with Les Miles. You fire him, you better have a definite replacement that is clearly better, like guaranteed better. And LSU didn't get that necessarily. Maybe Ogeron proves everybody wrong, but they didn't get a guarantee. And it was the same thing with the Pels, Thibodeau and even Van Gundy. And they say no, and they have to settle, and they like it in a way because he's cheaper than the other coach. He's probably half the price. But yeah, Eric, you make a great point. The day it goes down, ticket sales go up for games this year.
Yes.
And season ticket sales for next year, they sell a bunch, hundreds of packages, literally overnight. And I think my first thought was, Dell Demps saved his job.
Yeah.
But now that it's, you know, the dust is settled, they lose 3 straight with the new big lineup. It's going to take a while for them to, you know, get that going. Without him, technical foul is 18th of the year.
Sure.
A freshman. I mean, 3 games in with the Pels, he's already got a technical. They win without him. I think you bring up a good point. Like, did Dell Demps create this trade, or did the trade sort of fall in his lap because of the desperate Sacramento? And Les's first point was brilliant, too. Dude's probably getting fired. This just buys the Pels time. Like, do you wait longer to fire him, or you have time to think about it a little bit? But ultimately, Eric, I mean, it's a great question. It's a tough question. I would probably go with what you're saying, that the trade was a gift, and he didn't really do a lot to get that trade necessarily. And is that enough to keep him around?
And some are saying, well, you know, Cousins needs stability. That in Sacramento, that there was so much instability in terms of the front office and the coaching staff, you know, changing coach, etc. Well, maybe you send a clear message here and you say, look, we're going out, we're going to get a general manager that we know can build a team around you two, and we're going to get a coach that's going to get the optimum best out of you two going forward. We're not going to try to hold on to what we have, simply because they got in a plane and they met DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento and brought him back. I made the point on my radio show today, if Tom Benson was 10 years younger, he'd have been on that plane meeting DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento. So I don't think that they get a pass here. I think you just have to explain to Cousins, hey, look, we want you long term, but we want to be able to build something around you. And the guy that we have, even though he brought you here, he hasn't put the skins on the wall that merit him continuing.
Well, what good is continuity if the people you're trying to maintain the continuity with have proven they're not the best people for the job?
Right.
Okay? They have one of the 5 best players in the world, and they've regressed over the last 2 years with a team built around him. Now, I realize the supporting cast isn't very good.
Yeah, but who brought that supporting cast in
right,
here?
But they have to take responsibility
exactly.
for that as well. And I know there's a transition period. You're trying to bring in a new guy. You're trying to fit the 2 big guys together. But come on, if this team was in the right hands, would they have gone out and lost by 30 points the first time? The whole city was excited about the Pelicans for the first time in 2 years.
No, and they just get ripped.
He comes in and they just show up and they look like the worst team in the NBA.
Yep.
Are they being led by the people who should be leading them? If that's the attitude they take?
Yeah, Saints have continuity. They're 21 and 27 over the last 3 years. You don't want that kind of continuity.
It was a good deal, okay? It was a good deal. But there were a lot of bad deals that led up to this good deal. And maybe it's a little bad luck.
Yep.
Maybe it's a little snake bitten when you talk about Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson, a lot of the other guys who were injured. It is what it is, though. But it is a zero-sum game when you're talking about professional sports. You have to win. And they have not won consistently, and he's been given the reins. So at this point, he picked this coach. It hasn't worked to this point, and I don't think you retard the progress of the program going forward because the guy happened to pull a rabbit out of his hat.
I hate to say this. I want to go backwards, but it all trickles downhill, and I think it's terrible that you have one ownership group owning both these teams, less where, besides, economic impact and stuff, double the executives, double the white-collar jobs, 2 separate owners, competition for these major pro sports teams where each team's more honest and better. Also, you have like Mickey Loomis, who really isn't even an NFL guy, like player personnel. He's like, hey, draft Les Eastover Asher, he runs routes better. That's not Mickey Loomis's job. He's a capped contract guy, so he's not even a pure NFL guy. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but he's not a pure NFL guy. When Mickey Loomis shoots the you-know-what about Peyton on strengths of players and weaknesses, that's not his deal. He don't know anything about the NBA. It's not just, hey, you're a great leader and a great CEO, go be the NBA guy. So I think that's a major weakness that the buck stops here with that team. Right. It ain't Dell Demps.
No. And
it's not Tom Benson. It's Mickey Loomis doesn't know enough. Is it Dennis Lausch? It's sort of a rudderless ship from the top, and these guys underneath are, I don't know. That's not a good situation.
866-3200, going to the phone lines in just a moment. Let's talk about DeMarcus Cousins for a moment because the technical foul that he got against Oklahoma City I thought was very ticky-tack. I thought that it should have been a double foul. I think his reputation precedes him. I think it's going to be tough, and I think the Pelican fans have to realize this, that, again, because of the antics and the way he acted out in Sacramento, that, again, referees are not going to forget this.
He's got to be twice as good.
He does. He has to be twice as nice.
Yep.
So, again, he's not going to get a lot of calls, so expect that going forward. I'm a little surprised that the NBA didn't overturn that suspension, overturn that T. They've done it before. There's a precedent. They did it with Russell Westbrook. They've done it with other players. They didn't do it that way. But I will say this. He gives them the first real center presence since Tyson Chandler in the middle. You can see that already. He's going to make Anthony Davis a better player because Anthony Davis can face up now. He can slash. He can be an off-the-ball defender, an off-the-ball shot blocker. So he'll be a better player there. And you look at right now, they have to be able to surround him with shooters. When you look at what they've done so far, when you lose Hield, Galloway, and Evans, and you replace it with Hollis Thompson, Reggie Williams, and Jarrett Jack, that's not exactly comparable to the guys you lost. And the guys you lost weren't exactly setting the NBA on fire. So there's going to be some growing pains here. But ultimately, again, this team can be a great team if they surround both Davis and Cousins with the players to make them successful. What are your thoughts on Cousins?
Well, first of all, I thought it was kind of funny after the game. He said, he was asked about whether he'd be suspended or not, and he said, I kind of hope they give me the benefit of the doubt. I think the benefit of the doubt went out the window a few years ago.
17 technicals ago.
But, no, absolutely they had to pull the trigger on the trade. It's a great opportunity. I don't know if they'll be able to sign him long term, but putting him and Davis together is outstanding. It gives them a lot to work with, and I think one of the most important things it does, if this comes into play, is if they decide to make a change at coach, a lot of bigger name coaches are suddenly want to come to New Orleans.
That's a great point.
And say, even though DeMarcus has had a few problems with his temper, the idea of coaching those two guys is going to bring people out of the woodwork to take this job.
That's a great point.
So I think he brings a lot here, and I think you can make a case to him as to why he should stay here if you're able to land a big-name coach.
Your thoughts, Corey?
It was a no-brainer, Eric. I mean, they got the guy for free.
Yeah.
They got him for last year's number one and this year's number one, essentially.
Yeah, and it's protected.
You're going to lose Evans. You're going to, anyway, a contract year. So that was a great trade. It was a no-brainer. They stole the guy. But I'm still skeptical. I mean, can these two guys play together and it's going to take a little bit of time, but Anthony Davis is a super dynamic player. These guys sort of overlap. Cousins is probably more of a 4 than a 5. Davis is a 3 and a 4, really. He could play either one, but I know Cousins is the 5 and Davis is the 4, but their games overlap a little bit. Cousins is probably the best offensive center in the NBA. He's got an inside-outside game, and he can penetrate, he can stop and pop. It's pretty amazing for his size. But I just hope those two big men can work together, that you're going to get the most out of both of those guys.
I think they will.
You don't want to hinder Davis.
Right. I think Davis his game could be enhanced. He doesn't have to rebound anymore.
Right.
He doesn't have to go down and be
physical
on paper,
anymore. You're right.
Now he can do it on the court. Now he can face the basket. Before, I always said that he had to be close to the basket. Well, now he can take that mid-range jumper. He can follow a shot. And they're the worst offensive rebounding team in the NBA. Now they got a guy that's under the basket for every offensive set.
You're right. There's an adjustment there and some overlap. But you remember when the Texans announced they were drafting Mario Williams? Sean Payton was at dinner. He took a napkin and a pen. He started drawing plays for Reggie Bush. There are unemployed coaches and assistant coaches, maybe even head coaches in the NBA right now, drawing up ways they can make Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins work together. So somebody can make it work. They just got to find the right person and convince Cousins this is a place to be.
Let's head to the phone lines. 866-3200. Brian is in Metairie. Brian, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Brian.
How you doing, gentlemen? Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to be just a second. First off, Monty Williams should have never been let go to begin with. Should have never been let go. We shouldn't even be talking about Demps or talking about Gentry. From day one, Monty should have never left. Gentry was bad from day one. I mean, he has not moved the team in any good direction. I think Dale Demps is way past his. I think he should have been let go before this season started, where this trade wouldn't have been made by him. I think both of those two are part of the major problems of this team. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I have had Marty growing up. We've gotten this guy that does all this, and he's all great, Cousins, and he does have some baggage. Have we won a game with him yet? Isn't the idea we get players to win games? We got players that don't win games already. We don't need to start bringing more in that don't. I'm going to listen to y'all's comments.
Thank you, Brian. I would be patient on the Cousins winning a game thing because these guys have got to mesh. Part of that is the fact that Drew Holiday has really not meshed with those guys. And you've lost a big part of your offense as well. But so I would be patient with the DeMarcus Cousins situation. Guys?
I agree with that. Cousins is going to be fine. But I agree with everything else Brian said.
Yes, I agree. Let's go to Greg in Houma. Greg, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys, just got to make a comment on the Jarris Bird releasing. I agree we need to release Jarris Bird because he's not productive, and I totally understand that. I guess my thought behind it is, okay, you got Von Bell in the back, and then you got Kenny Vaccaro. And we all know that Kenny Vaccaro is not that great of a cover guy. He is more of a guy that's closer to the line, and he kicks butt. So my question is what's going to happen in the backfield now when you got Kenny Vaccaro and you got a rookie with Von Bell making some calls and changes, and I just see them getting burnt, and I don't have any other solutions on how to fix that. And I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks for the call. Well, you're going to have to get another safety. I mean, you are. I mean, whether it's in a draft, whatever it is, but you're going to have to get a guy that can cover.
Totally right.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, right? Look, but I don't think Jairus Byrd was the answer at his salary when you could open up that type of money and maybe able to get 2 players for what Byrd is costing you right now. Yep. A Byrd that is not the guy that he once was.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the case. He wasn't the player they needed, certainly not at the money he was going to cost them. But it does create a hole that needs to be filled by another safety.
Let's go to Deborah in Gentilly. Deborah, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Deborah. Deborah, you're on the air. Deborah, going once.
Yeah.
Hey, Deborah, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm okay. How you doing?
Doing great.
I have a question. Well, it's not really a question, but last night I was watching the game with the Pelicans, and I noticed how AD played well without Cousins, but I thought about them playing not together but separate. And what do you think about that?
Thank you for the phone call. That's been discussed, hasn't it? That they would utilize them obviously in crunch time together, but maybe playing them apart some. At least right now, while there's a transition.
Absolutely. I think that's something that they should look at. They don't have to be on the court at the same time. And I think you're right. It would help ease the transition. So
you got so many minutes. You don't want to have Davis playing 44 or 48 and Cousins is playing 28 or something.
Right.
But one thing you can do, and I mean I don't keep going backwards, but you can play Davis at the 3, Cousins at the 4, and put in a small center and run a different offense a little bit. So I think those are maybe some of the gimmicks you need to try to. I think Les made a great point. There's a coach right now drawing on a napkin. These 2 guys salivating, and his system would work. It would be a perfect fit.
Definitely agree. Ed's in Kenner. Ed, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Ed.
My call. Hey, what about Danny Ferry? You think that maybe he had the inside scoop on bringing Cousins in? And that second question I wanted to shoot at real quick was, what about bringing in Joe Dumars as the head coach? I hang up and listen. Thank you, guys.
Well, Joe Dumars is more of a GM. And so, again, and there was a lot of talk. That, again,
I thought they were going to bring him in.
Obviously, they did not up to this point. So we got time for one more question. Let's go to Wallace in New Orleans. Hey, Wallace. Welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Wallace? Okay, Wallace is out of there. Guys, I think that people have to be patient with Cousins and Davis at this point. Yep. It's a work in progress, 25-game sprint. I think that if you look at them at the latter part of this, maybe 12 games, if they're playing well then, I think you got something there going forward.
Well, I think the good thing is that Cousins is under contract for another year.
Yes.
So they have some time to figure this out. And there are a lot of things they need to take into account. So patience is important.
Patience is important. I think Les is right, and it's a long-term thing. Ideal, you can re-sign the guy from Mobile, all that kind of stuff. But you were inching towards the playoffs already without him. So you better make the playoffs with the guy, I think.
Right.
You got to slip into the playoffs.
Well, we'll see what's going to happen with that as well, but I think there has to be some patience. Corey Johnson, Les East, thanks for being on our panel tonight.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also statewide on Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 p.m. every Friday night. You catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO. That's 11 to 1 weekdays. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. Don't forget the TuneIn Radio app. Free download for your smartphone or tablet. You can take the show with you anywhere. Remember, all the previous episodes of the award-winning Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to Corey Johnson and to Les East, also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, Philip Williamson, Richard King, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching this week's edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll catch you right back here next week for another edition. Thanks for watching.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.